The teacup shattered. Not because I dropped it, but because I set it down too hard on the counter. My hands were shaking, not from age or weakness, but from something burning hot inside my chest. Marcus, my youngest son, was sitting at my dining table, feet propped up like he owned the place. He just said something that made my blood run cold. "Come on, Ma," he said with that grin. "You don't actually have money anymore, right? I mean, you're living off scraps. That's why we're here to help." Help. That word tasted like poison. His girlfriend, Vanessa, was beside him, filing her nails like this conversation bored her. She hadn't even looked at me once since they walked in. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. This wasn't the first time Marcus had hinted. This wasn't even the second. But today, something inside me snapped clean in half. "We just want to make sure you're okay," Marcus continued, leaning back in the chair that used to belong to my late husband, Robert. "I mean, you're getting older. Managing money gets hard. Maybe it's time someone younger took over. Someone who knows what they're doing." Took over. Like I was a business about to go under. Like I was a broken toy that needed fixing. I stood there, gripping the edge of the sink, staring at the back of his head. This was the boy I rocked to sleep every night when he had nightmares. The boy I worked 3 jobs to send to college. The boy who promised he'd always take care of me. Now he sat in my kitchen, talking about me like I wasn't even there. Vanessa finally looked up. "Marcus is right, Mrs. Green. You don't want to end up confused, signing the wrong things. It happens to older folks all the time." I didn't respond. I just watched them. Watched how comfortable they were. How certain. Marcus pulled out his phone and started swiping. "So here's the thing, Ma. I've been talking to a financial guy. Super smart. He said we could set up a joint account. So I can help manage things. Pay your bills. Keep everything organized. You wouldn't have to worry about a thing." Joint account. My stomach turned. I knew exactly what that meant. Meant access. Meant control. It meant that one day, I'd wake up and everything I'd worked for would be gone. And Marcus would call it help. "How much do you think I have?" I asked quietly. He paused, then laughed. That same laugh from earlier. "Ma, you sold that little craft shop for what, 60,000? Maybe 70. It's cute that you held on to it, but let's be real. That's not enough to live on forever. That's why I'm trying to help you stretch it. 60,000. He thought that's all I had. I didn't correct him. I just turned around and started washing the broken pieces of the teacup, my hands steady now. They left 20 minutes later. Marcus kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. Vanessa didn't even say goodbye. I stood in the doorway and watched their car pull away, the engine loud and expensive. Then I closed the door and locked it. I walked to the small desk in the corner of my living room and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a yellow folder. I hadn't touched it in months, but I knew exactly what was inside. Letter. It had arrived 3 weeks ago, from a woman named Ms. Parker at my bank. The letter was polite, almost too polite. It said that someone had tried to add themselves to my account, tried to get access to my funds, tried to make themselves a co-owner. The request was denied because I never signed anything, but the attempt was made. And the name on that request was Marcus Vincent Green. My son. My baby boy. I sat down slowly, the folder open in my lap, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not sadness. Not even anger. Just a cold, clear certainty. I didn't cry. I made a list instead. I wrote down every time Marcus had asked for money. Every time he'd shown up with a sob story and left with a check. The time he needed help with rent. The time his car broke down. The time Vanessa's mother got sick and they needed cash fast. I wrote it all down, and when I was done, the list filled 2 whole pages. Thousands and thousands of dollars. And not once, not a single time had he ever paid me back. Not once had he even said thank you after the first few times. Just became expected. I thought I was being a good mother. I thought I was helping my child. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being his mother and became his bank. And now he wanted to make it official. I put the list back in the folder and stood up. My knees ached, but I ignored it. I walked to the phone and dialed the number on the letter. Ms. Parker answered on the second ring. "This is Diane Green," I said. "I received your letter about the account access request." "Oh, yes, Mrs. Green," Ms. Parker said warmly. "I'm so glad you called. I wanted to make sure you were aware of the situation. Everything is still secure. You are still the sole owner of all your accounts." "I know," I said. "And I want to keep it that way. I also want to know exactly what was requested and who requested it." There was a pause. Then Ms. Parker spoke carefully. "The request came from a Marcus Green. He submitted paperwork claiming he was your financial caretaker. He requested full access to your savings, your checking, and your investment portfolio. The paperwork was incomplete, so we flagged it and reached out to you directly." My heart didn't even skip. Already knew. But hearing it out loud made it real. "Thank you for catching it," I said. "I want to make sure nothing like this ever happens again." "Absolutely," Ms. Parker replied. "We can put additional security measures in place. You can require in-person authorization for any changes. We can also remove any previously linked individuals from your accounts." "Do it," I said. "All of it." The next morning I went to the bank. It was a small branch near the grocery store, the kind with soft carpet and chairs that were too low to the ground. Ms. Parker met me at the door. She was younger than I expected, maybe in her 30s, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. We sat in a private room with glass walls. She pulled up my accounts on her computer and turned the screen toward me. "Mrs. Green," she said gently, "you have been a customer here for 38 years. Your accounts are in excellent standing. You have nothing to worry about." I looked at the numbers on the screen. My savings account. My investment account. The small retirement fund Robert and I had built together before he passed. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. And it was more than Marcus ever imagined. "I want to make sure no one can touch this but me," I said. Ms. Parker nodded. "We'll set up two-factor authentication, require your physical presence for any major changes, and remove all emergency contacts currently listed." "Who's listed?" I asked, even though I already knew. She hesitated, then said softly, "Marcus Green." I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot and stared at the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. "Hey Ma, just checking in. You doing okay? Need anything?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. I didn't block him. Not yet. But I didn't reply either. I drove to the park near my house, the one with the big oak trees and the pond where the ducks like to gather. I used to bring Marcus here when he was little. He'd chase the ducks and laugh so hard he'd fall down in the grass. I sat on a bench and watched a young mother with her son. The boy was maybe 4, holding a piece of bread, giggling as the ducks waddled toward him. The mother smiled, her hand on his shoulder, keeping him steady. That used to be me. I used to be the one holding on, keeping my boy safe. But somewhere along the way I let go. And he never learned to stand on his own. When I got home there was a car in my driveway. I didn't recognize it at first, but then I saw Vanessa step out alone. She was wearing sunglasses even though the sun was barely out. I parked behind her and got out slowly. "Mrs. Green," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I hope you don't mind. Marcus is working, but I thought I'd stop by. You know, just to see how you're doing." I didn't invite her in. I just stood there on my porch with my purse on my shoulder and my keys in my hand. "What do you need, Vanessa?" Her smile faltered. "I just wanted to talk. Woman to woman. I think maybe there's been some misunderstanding." "About what?" I asked. "About Marcus trying to help you," she said, taking off her sunglasses. "He's really worried about you. He just wants to make sure you're taken care of." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "He tried to take my money, Vanessa. That's not help. That's theft." Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "That's not. He wouldn't." "I have the paperwork," I said, my voice calm and even. The bank called me. They told me everything. So, if you came here to convince me to give him access, you can leave now. Vanessa's expression shifted. The fake sweetness disappeared, replaced by something cold and sharp. You're making a huge mistake, she said. Marcus has done everything for you. And this is how you repay him. Everything, I repeated. Tell me, Vanessa, what has Marcus done for me in the last 5 years besides ask for money? She didn't answer. That's what I thought, I said. Now please leave. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. Then she put her sunglasses back on, got in her car, and drove away without another word. I stood there on my porch watching her go, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to relief. Not happiness, not peace, but relief. Like I'd finally stopped holding my breath. That night my phone rang. It was Marcus. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. Ma, he said, and his voice was tight. Vanessa told me you accused me of trying to steal from you. What the hell is going on? I didn't accuse you, I said calmly. I stated a fact. You tried to access my accounts without my permission. That's not what happened, he shot back. I was trying to help you. You're getting older and I didn't want you to get confused or scammed. I was protecting you. By lying to the bank. Yes. By forging documents with my name on them? Silence. Then he said, his voice lower. I didn't forge anything. I filled out the forms. I thought you'd be okay with it. You thought wrong. Ma, come on. This is ridiculous. You're acting like I'm some kind of criminal. I'm your son. I know who you are, Marcus, I said quietly. That's why this hurts so much. He didn't respond right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Colder. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, then fine. But don't come crying to me when you need help. Hung up. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear. From something else. Something that felt a lot like freedom. I walked into my bedroom and opened the closet. On the top shelf, buried under old blankets, was a metal lockbox. I pulled it down and set it on the bed. Inside were papers, receipts, copies of checks I'd written to Marcus over the years. I'd kept them all, not because I planned to use them, but because some part of me always knew this day might come. Counted them. $12,000 in the last 3 years alone. Rent, car repairs, medical bills, a business investment that never went anywhere. Every time he'd promised to pay me back. Every time I told him it was okay. But it wasn't okay. It never had been. I closed the box and put it back. I didn't need to show it to anyone. I just needed to know it was there. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that I wasn't wrong. The next day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Green, a woman's voice said. This is Jennifer from Family First Legal Services. I'm calling because your son, Marcus Green, has requested that we help him file for financial guardianship over you. My heart stopped. What? He's claiming that you're unable to manage your own affairs due to age-related decline, Jennifer continued. He's requested a court hearing to assess your mental competency. I couldn't breathe. I'm 72 years old, I said. I'm not senile. I'm not confused. I manage my own life just fine. I understand, Jennifer said gently. And I want you to know that these cases are taken very seriously. You have the right to contest this. You have the right to legal representation. I'm calling you as a courtesy because our firm requires us to notify the individual in question before proceeding. Thank you, I whispered. She gave me the date of the hearing. 3 weeks away. Then she hung up. I sat there in my kitchen, staring at the wall, and I realized something. Marcus wasn't going to stop. He was going to take everything. I called Ms. Parker at the bank. I need help, I said. I need a lawyer. She didn't hesitate. I know someone, she said. Her name is Laura Chen. She specializes in elder law and financial abuse. Let me give you her number. 2 days later, I sat in Laura Chen's office. She was sharp, professional, and she didn't waste time. "Mrs. Green," she said, looking over the documents I'd brought. "This is a clear case of attempted financial exploitation. Your son tried to access your accounts without permission, and now he's trying to have you declared incompetent so he can control your assets legally. Can he do that?" "Yes." "Not if we fight it," Laura said. "And we will. I'll need medical records, financial records, and character witnesses. We're going to show the court that you are fully capable of managing your own life." He nodded. "What do I need to do?" "First," Laura said, "you need to stop feeling guilty." I looked at her, surprised. She met my eyes. "You're not doing anything wrong. You're protecting yourself. Remember that." The hearing was in a small courtroom that smelled like old wood and floor polish. I wore my best dress, the navy one with the white buttons. Laura sat beside me, calm and confident. Marcus sat on the other side with his lawyer, a man in a cheap suit who looked bored. The judge was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. Marcus's lawyer went first. He painted a picture of a confused, elderly woman who couldn't manage her bills, who forgot appointments, who needed help. He made me sound like I was falling apart. Then Laura stood up. She presented my medical records. Clean bill of health. Sharp mind. No signs of dementia or decline. She presented my bank statements. Every bill paid on time. Every account balanced. She presented letters from my neighbors, my doctor, my pastor. All of them said the same thing. Diane Green is strong, independent, and fully capable. Then Laura did something I didn't expect. She presented the receipts. Every check I'd written to Marcus. Every loan he'd never repaid. She showed the court the paperwork he'd submitted to the bank. The request for access he'd made without my knowledge. The judge looked at Marcus. "Mr. Green," she said slowly, "can you explain why you attempted to gain control of your mother's finances without her consent?" Marcus shifted in his seat. "I was trying to help her, Your Honor. She's getting older and I didn't want her to be taken advantage of." "And yet," the judge said, flipping through the papers, "it appears you are the one who has taken advantage of her." "Repeatedly." His face turned red. "That's not. Those were loans. She offered." "Did you pay them back?" the judge asked. Silence. The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Green, do you feel you need a guardian?" "No, Your Honor," I said clearly. "I do not." She nodded. "Then this case is dismissed. Mr. Green, I strongly suggest you reconsider your relationship with your mother. This court will not be a tool for financial abuse." The gavel came down. It was over. Outside the courtroom, Marcus tried to approach me. "Ma, wait," he said. I stopped and turned to face him. His eyes were red. He looked smaller somehow. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought I was helping." "No," I said quietly. "You thought you were entitled." He flinched. "I'm still your son." "I know," I said. "But that doesn't mean you get to take everything from me." He opened his mouth to say something else, but I was already walking away. Laura walked beside me, silent and steady. When we reached my car, she handed me a folder. "Everything you need is in here," she said. "Your accounts are secure. Your will is updated. And if Marcus tries anything again, call me immediately." He nodded. "Thank you." She smiled. "You did this, Mrs. Green." "Not me. You stood up for yourself. That takes courage." I drove home in silence, the folder on the passenger seat. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat there for a moment, my hands on the wheel. Then I started to cry. Not sad tears. Not angry tears. Just release. The days that followed were quiet. Marcus didn't call. Vanessa didn't show up. It was like they'd both just disappeared from my life. First it felt strange. Then it felt peaceful. I started going to the park again. I started baking again. I even signed up for a painting class at the community center. One afternoon, my neighbor, Mrs. Liu, knocked on my door. She was holding a casserole. "I heard what happened," she said gently. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay." I invited her in. We sat at my kitchen table and talked for 2 hours. She told me about her own son, who'd moved across the country and only called on holidays. We laughed. We cried a little. And when she left, I didn't feel so alone anymore. That night, I pulled out an old photo album. There were pictures of Marcus as a baby, as a little boy, as a teenager. I looked at each one, remembering who he used to be. Then I closed the album and put it back on the shelf. I couldn't change the past. But I could protect my future. A month later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Marcus. The handwriting was his, messy and slanted. I almost didn't open it. But I did. "Ma," it said. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Really sorry. I got caught up in my own problems and I forgot what mattered. I forgot that you're not just my mom. You're a person. I hope one day we can talk again. But I understand if we can't. Love, Marcus." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it up and put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to forgive him. Maybe I never would be. But I kept the letter. Because even though he'd hurt me, he was still my son. And maybe, someday that would mean something again. I started volunteering at the senior center downtown. It was something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. Now I had all the time in the world. I met people like me. People who'd been hurt by their families. People who'd been taken advantage of. People who were learning to stand on their own again. We shared stories. We laughed. We supported each other. One woman, Margaret, told me she'd lost everything to her daughter. Her house, her savings, everything. She was living in a tiny apartment now, starting over at 78. "But you know what?" she said with a smile. "I'm free. For the first time in years, I'm free." I understood exactly what she meant. Freedom wasn't about having money. It was about having control. It was about knowing that your life belonged to you and no one else. One evening I got a call from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Mrs. Green," a young voice said. "This is Amy. I'm Marcus's daughter." My heart skipped. Me. My granddaughter. I hadn't seen her in over a year. "Amy," I said, my voice shaking. "How are you, sweetheart?" "I'm okay," she said quietly. "Grandma, I wanted to call because I heard what happened. Dad told me his version, but I wanted to hear yours." I took a deep breath. Then I told her. I told her everything. The account. Court case. The years of loans. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then Amy said, "I'm so sorry, Grandma. I had no idea." "It's not your fault, sweetheart," I said. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Can I come see you?" she asked. "I really want to see you." My eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that very much." She came the next weekend. She was 17 now, tall and beautiful with her grandfather's eyes. We sat on the porch and drank lemonade and talked about everything. Cool. Friends. Her dreams of going to college. She didn't ask about Marcus. And I didn't bring him up. We just enjoyed being together the way we used to. Before she left, Amy hugged me tight. "Grandma," she whispered. "I'm proud of you." I held her close, my heart so full it ached. "Thank you, baby," I said. "That means more than you know." After she drove away, I stood on the porch and watched the sun set. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange, and the air smelled like autumn. I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the fight, pain. But I also thought about the strength I'd found. People who'd stood by me. The life I was building piece by piece on my own terms. I wasn't the same woman I'd been a few months ago. That woman had been afraid. That woman had been small. This woman, the one standing here now, was different. She was strong. She was whole. And she belonged to no one but herself. Winter came quietly. The trees lost their leaves, and the air turned cold and sharp. I bought a new coat, a red one, because I'd always wanted a red coat but never thought I could pull it off. Now I didn't care. I wore it proudly. I spent Christmas alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I cooked myself a small turkey, watched old movies, and called a few friends. It was peaceful. On New Year's Eve, I sat by the window with a cup of tea and watched the neighbors set off fireworks. The sky lit up in bursts of color, and I thought about the year ahead. I didn't know what it would bring, but for the first time in a long time I wasn't afraid. I was ready to live, ready to protect what was mine, ready to be exactly who I was meant to be. And no one, not even my own son, could take that away from me. In January, I got a call from Ms. Parker at the bank. "Mrs. Green," she said warmly, "I just wanted to check in. How are you doing?" "I'm doing well," I said. "Really well." "I'm so glad to hear that," she said. "You know, you've inspired a lot of people here at the bank. We've had other clients reach out after hearing your story. They want to protect themselves too." Smiled. "I'm glad I could help." "You did more than help," Ms. Parker said. "You showed people that it's never too late to stand up for yourself." After we hung up, I sat there thinking about her words. I'd spent so many years trying to be the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect woman. I'd bent and stretched and given until there was almost nothing left. But I'd found something in the process. I'd found me. Not the me that everyone wanted me to be. Not the me that made everyone else comfortable. Just me. Diane Green. Flawed, stubborn, strong and free. Spring arrived like a promise. The flowers bloomed, the birds returned, and the world felt new again. I planted a garden in my backyard. Something I'd never had time for before. Tomatoes, peppers, sunflowers. I worked in the dirt with my hands, feeling the earth beneath my fingers, and I felt alive. One afternoon, as I was watering the plants, I heard a car pull up. I turned and saw Marcus standing at the edge of my driveway. He looked different, thinner, older, tired. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then he walked slowly toward me. "Hi, Ma," he said quietly. I set down the watering can. "Marcus, I know I don't have the right to be here," he said. "But I needed to see you. I needed to tell you I'm sorry. Not because I want something. Just because it's true." I didn't say anything. He took a deep breath. "I was wrong. About everything. I thought I was owed something because I'm your son. But I wasn't owed anything. You gave me everything and I threw it away." His voice cracked. "I threw you away." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw the boy I used to know. Buried deep under the mistakes and the greed and the pain. He was still there. Somewhere. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said honestly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." He nodded. "I understand. But," I continued, "I don't hate you. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life being angry." He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "So, what does that mean?" "It means," I said slowly, "that if you want to be part of my life again, you have to earn it. Not with money. Not with promises. With actions. With respect." "I will," he said quickly. "I swear I will." He nodded. "We'll see." He left a few minutes later, and I watched him go. I didn't know if he'd follow through. I didn't know if things would ever be okay between us. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to sacrifice myself to find out. Not anymore. The months passed. Marcus called once a week just to check in. He didn't ask for money. He didn't push. He just talked. About his life. About his regrets. About the things he was trying to change. Slowly, carefully, we started to rebuild. It wasn't the same. It would never be the same. But it was something. And that was enough. Amy came to visit more often. She'd bring her homework and sit at my kitchen table while I baked cookies. We'd talk about her classes, her boyfriend, her plans for the future. She reminded me so much of myself at that age. Full of dreams and hope. One day she asked me, "Grandma, do you think people can really change?" I thought about it for a long time. Then I said, "I think people can try. And sometimes trying is enough." She smiled. "I think so too." That summer I took a trip. Something I'd never done before. I went to the mountains, stayed in a little cabin, and spent a week reading, hiking, and just being. It was glorious. When I came back I felt lighter. Like I'd left something heavy behind in those mountains. I started writing. Not a book, just thoughts, memories, lessons I'd learned. I wrote about Robert, about the early years when we were broke but happy. I wrote about raising Marcus, the good times and the hard times. I wrote about the betrayal, the fight, the healing. And I wrote about the woman I'd become. The woman who'd learned to say no. The woman who'd learned that protecting herself wasn't selfish. The woman who'd learned that love without respect isn't love at all. One evening I read some of it to Margaret at the senior center. She listened, tears in her eyes. "You should share this," she said. "Other people need to hear it." "Maybe," I said. But even if I never shared it with anyone, it was enough that I'd written it. It was enough that I'd told my story, even if only to myself. A year after the court case, I got a letter from Laura Chen, my lawyer. Inside was a newspaper clipping. It was a story about financial abuse of elderly people, and how more and more families were standing up to protect themselves. At the bottom, Laura had written a note. "You were part of this change, Diane. Be proud." I was proud, not in a loud, showy way, but in a quiet, deep way that settled into my bones and stayed there. I'd fought for myself. I'd won. And in doing so, I'd helped others find the courage to do the same. That winter on Christmas Eve, Marcus came by. He brought Amy and a small gift. We sat by the fire, drank hot chocolate, and talked. It was awkward at first, but then Amy started telling a funny story and we all laughed. For a moment it felt like old times. Not the painful times. The good times. The times I'd thought were lost forever. When they left, Marcus hugged me. "Thank you, Ma," he whispered, "for giving me another chance." I didn't say anything. I just held him. Because even after everything, he was still my son. And I was still his mother. But now I was something else too. I was my own person. And that made all the difference. I stood on the porch and watched them drive away. The snow was falling softly, covering the world in white. It was beautiful, peaceful. I went back inside, locked the door, and sat by the fire. I thought about all the years I'd spent giving my time, my money, my energy, myself. And I thought about how close I'd come to losing everything. But I didn't. Fought back. I stood up. Said no. And in doing so, I found something I didn't even know I'd lost. My voice. My strength. My life. I picked up my journal and wrote one final line. "I am enough. I always was." Then I closed the book and smiled. 'Cause it was true. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my window. I got up, made coffee, and sat at the table with the newspaper. There was a small ad in the corner. The community center was looking for volunteers to teach a class. "Anything you're passionate about," it said. Thought about it. What was I passionate about? Survival, I realized. Strength. Standing up for yourself. Called the number. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of a room full of women. All of them older, all of them tired. "My name is Diane," I said. "And I'm here to tell you that it's never too late to take your life back." I told them my story. I told them about Marcus, the bank, the court case. I told them about the fight and the fear and the freedom. When I finished, the room was silent. Then one woman raised her hand. "How do I start?" she asked, her voice trembling. Smiled. "You start by believing you're worth fighting for." Class became a weekly thing. Women came, shared their stories, and learned how to protect themselves. Some filed restraints. Some changed their wills. Some just learned to say no. And every single one of them left stronger than when they arrived. One day, a woman named Rose came up to me after class. She was in her 80s, small and frail-looking. But her eyes were fierce. "Thank you," she said. "My grandson tried to take my house. But because of you, I stopped him." She hugged me, and I felt her shake with emotion. "You saved my life," she whispered. I held her tight. "No," I said. "You saved your own life. I just showed you it was possible." That moment stayed with me. It reminded me that my story wasn't just mine. It belonged to every person who'd ever been used, dismissed, or erased. And now it was helping them find their way back. I thought about Marcus. About the pain he'd caused. About the lessons I'd learned. And I realized something important. His betrayal hadn't destroyed me, had awakened me. It had forced me to see what I'd been ignoring for years. That I mattered, that my life was my own, and that no one, not even family, had the right to take that away. Spring came again, marking 2 years since that day in my kitchen when Marcus had laughed at me. 2 years since I'd discovered what he'd tried to do. 2 years since I'd taken my life back. I was sitting in my garden, pruning the roses, when my phone rang. 'Twas Amy. "Grandma," she said, excitement in her voice. "I got into college. I got a full scholarship." I screamed with joy, startling the birds in the trees. "Amy, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you." We talked for an hour about her plans, her dreams, her future. Before we hung up, she said something that made my heart swell. "Grandma, I want to be like you when I grow up. Strong and brave and free." I wiped my eyes. "You already are, sweetheart. You already are." That afternoon I went to the bank. Miss Parker greeted me with a warm smile. "Mrs. Green, what can I do for you today?" "I want to set up a college fund," I said. "For my granddaughter Amy. In her name only. No one else can touch it." Miss Parker smiled. "That's a beautiful gift." "It's not a gift," I said. "It's a promise. A promise that she'll never have to fight for what's hers." The fund was established that day. $50,000, set aside for Amy's education. When I told her, she cried. "Grandma, that's too much," she said. "It's exactly enough," I replied. "You deserve a future that's yours alone. No strings. No conditions. Just freedom to become whoever you want to be." Marcus called me that night. Amy had told him about the college fund. "Ma," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. You didn't have to do that." "I didn't do it for you," I said gently. "I did it for her. Because she sees me as a person, not a bank account." There was a long pause. "I see you now too," he said quietly. "I know it's too late. I know I ruined everything. But I see you now." "It's not too late," I said. "It's just different." We talked for a while longer. It wasn't perfect. There were still walls between us, scars that might never fully heal. But there was also something new. Understanding. Respect. A cautious, fragile hope that maybe one day we could find our way back to each other. That summer I traveled again. This time to the ocean. I'd always loved the water, the way it stretched out forever, endless and free. I walked along the beach every morning, feeling the sand between my toes and the sun on my face. One evening, I sat on a bench watching the sunset, and a woman sat down beside me. She was younger, maybe in her 50s, with tired eyes. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said. "It is," I agreed. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then she said, "I'm here because I needed to get away. From my family. They've been difficult." I looked at her. I saw myself 2 years ago. Less afraid. "Tell me about it," I said gently. She did. She told me about her son who'd stolen from her, her daughter who'd stopped calling, her husband who'd passed away and left her alone with people who only wanted what he'd left behind. I listened. Then I told her my story. When I finished, she was crying. "How did you do it?" she asked. "How did you find the strength?" "I realized something," I said. "I realized that staying small wasn't protecting me. It was killing me." She wiped her eyes and nodded. "Thank you," she said. I needed to hear that. We exchanged numbers before we parted. A week later she texted me. She'd gone to a lawyer. She'd protected her accounts. She'd stood up for herself. "You changed my life," her message said. I smiled and replied, "No, you changed your own life. I just reminded you that you could." That moment made me realize something. My story wasn't just about me and Marcus. It was about every person who'd ever been made to feel small. Every person who'd been told their life didn't belong to them. Every person who'd forgotten they had the right to say no. If sharing my story helped even one person, then everything I'd been through was worth it. I spent the rest of the summer writing. I turned my journal into a small book, just 100 pages about my journey. I called it Still Standing. I didn't know if anyone would read it, but I knew I had to write it. 'Cause my voice mattered. And maybe, just maybe, it could help someone else find theirs. When I returned home, I gave the manuscript to Margaret at the senior center. She read it in one sitting. When she finished, she looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "Diane," she said, "this needs to be published. People need to read this." "I don't know," I said. "I'm not a writer." "Yes, you are," she insisted. "You're a survivor. And survivors have the most important stories to tell." A month later, a small local publisher agreed to print it. They said it was exactly the kind of story people needed right now. The book came out in the fall. It didn't become a bestseller. Didn't make me famous. But it found the people who needed it. I started getting letters. From women who'd been stolen from by their children. From men who'd been taken advantage of by their families. From people who'd felt invisible, erased, forgotten. They all said the same thing. "Thank you for telling me I'm not alone." And that made everything worth it. On the anniversary of the court case, 3 years after Marcus had tried to take everything, I threw a small party. I invited the women from my class, Margaret, Ms. Parker, Laura Chen, and Amy. We gathered in my backyard, surrounded by the garden I'd planted with my own hands. I stood up and raised my glass. 3 years ago, I said, I almost lost everything. My money, my dignity, myself. But I didn't. 'Cause I chose to fight. Chose to stand up. I chose to believe I was worth saving. Everyone cheered. And now, I continued, I want to thank all of you. Because you reminded me that I'm not alone. That none of us are alone. We're stronger together. We laughed. We told stories. And as the sun set over my garden, I looked around at these women, these warriors, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pure, complete joy. Marcus didn't come to the party, but he sent a card. Inside he'd written just 3 words. "I'm so proud." I tucked it into my pocket and smiled. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. That winter Amy graduated high school. I sat in the audience, watching her walk across the stage, and my heart nearly burst with pride. After the ceremony, she ran to me and threw her arms around me. "I did it, Grandma," she said. "You did," I said, holding her tight. "And you're going to do so much more." She pulled back and looked at me seriously. "Grandma, I want you to know something. You're my hero. Not because you have money or because you fought back. But because you showed me what strength looks like. Real strength." I couldn't speak. I just held her and cried happy tears. That night, lying in bed, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal. The fight. The healing. The growth. I thought about the woman I used to be. The one who said yes to everything, who made herself small, who believed her worth was tied to how much she could give. That woman was gone. In her place was someone new. Someone who knew her value. Someone who protected her peace. Someone who understood that love without boundaries isn't love at all. Spring arrived once more, and with it came new beginnings. I expanded my class at the senior center. Now we met twice a week, and the room was always full. Women and men, young and old, all learning to take their lives back. One day, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 30. "Mrs. Green," she said, "can I talk to you?" We sat outside on a bench. She told me her mother was trying to control her bank account, her apartment, her whole life. "I don't know how to stop her," she said. "I feel so guilty." "Guilt is a weapon," I said gently. "And people who love you don't use weapons." She looked at me with wide eyes. "But she's my mother. I'm supposed to honor her." "Honoring someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you," I said. "You can love your mother and still protect yourself." She started to cry. I held her hand while she let it all out. When she finally stopped, she looked at me and said, "Will you help me?" "Yes," I said. "But more importantly, you're going to help yourself." Over the next few months, I watched her transform. She went to the bank. She changed her accounts. She moved to a new apartment her mother didn't have a key to. And slowly, carefully, she built a life that was truly hers. The day she came to class and announced she'd done it, everyone stood up and applauded. She was glowing. "I feel free," she said. "For the first time in my life, I feel free." Hugged her. "That's what it's all about," I said. Freedom. That night I updated my journal. I wrote about her, about all the people I'd met, about all the lives that were changing. And I wrote about my own journey. 3 years ago I was a victim, I wrote. Today I am a survivor. And tomorrow I will be even more. I closed the journal and looked around my home. The home I'd protected. The life I'd rebuilt. The peace I'd found. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. There were still moments when I missed the son I thought I had. But I didn't regret standing up for myself. Not for a single second. Marcus and I talked once a month now. The conversations were short but honest. He'd started therapy. He was working on himself, on his marriage, on becoming the man he should have been all along. "I'm not asking you to forget," he said during one call. "I just want you to know I'm trying." "I know," I said. "And I'm proud of you for that." It wasn't the relationship we used to have. But maybe it was better. Because now it was built on truth, not obligation. On respect, not guilt. On reality, not fantasy. Amy started college that fall. She called me every week, full of stories about her classes, her friends, her life. She was thriving. And every time I heard her voice, I was reminded why I'd fought so hard. Not just for me. For her. For the next generation. So they would know that they didn't have to shrink themselves to make others comfortable. So they would know that their lives belong to them. So they would know that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, I sat in my garden with a cup of tea and my journal. The sun was warm on my face, and the flowers I'd planted were in full bloom. I opened to a blank page and wrote the final entry. My name is Diane Green. I am 75 years old. I am a mother, a grandmother, a friend, and a teacher. But most importantly, I am myself. For too many years I forgot that. I let other people define me, use me, erase me. But not anymore. I took my life back. I stood up when it was hard. I said no when it was scary. I chose myself when everyone else expected me to choose them. And I would do it all again. 'Cause I am worth fighting for. We all are. I closed the journal and looked up at the sky. A bird flew overhead, free and unburdened. Smiled. That was me now. Free. Unburdened. Still standing. And I always would be. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. That the only person who could save me was me. And I'd done it. Saved myself. And that made all the difference.